My name's Jake, and I'm 35. My wife, Emily, is 33. We've been married for 7 years, together for 9, and up until recently, I thought we had a solid marriage. We have a 4-year-old daughter, Lily, who's the center of my universe. Emily is what you might call polarizing. She's charming as hell when she wants to be, but she's got this sharp edge, sarcastic, impatient, quick to anger. Over the years, I've learned to navigate her moods, or at least I thought I had. The first crack in the facade came about 2 months ago. Emily started acting different. She was glued to her phone all the time, smiling at texts she wouldn't share, and going out more often with vague excuses like, "It's just a girls' night," or "I'm helping a friend." At first, I didn't think much of it. Emily's always been social, and I figured she was just blowing off steam. But then the excuses started to pile up. She'd come home late smelling like cheap wine and perfume that wasn't hers. She'd get defensive when I asked simple questions like, "How was your night?" or "Who were you with?" The tipping point came one Saturday night. She was getting ready to go out, and Lily was in the living room coloring. I walked into the bedroom and noticed Emily had put on this black dress I hadn't seen in years. The one she used to wear when we first started dating. "Wow," I said, genuinely surprised. "You look amazing. What's the occasion?" Her response was flat. "Oh, just meeting some friends. Nothing special." Something about the way she said it made my stomach turn. I tried to push the feeling aside, but it lingered long after she left. When she came home that night, around 2 a.m., she was stumbling drunk, her makeup smeared, and her hair a mess. As I helped her to bed, she muttered something under her breath that I couldn't quite make out. "What was that?" I asked. "Nothing," she slurred, turning away from me. "Just missed you." But I didn't believe her. The next morning, when she was hungover and half asleep, I found her phone lying on the kitchen counter. It was unlocked. Now, I'm not proud of what I did next, but something in my gut told me I needed to look. I opened her messages, and that's when I saw it. A text thread with someone named Aaron. "Aaron, last night was amazing. You looked stunning. Emily, you always know how to make me feel special. Can't wait for next time, Red Heart." Aaron wasn't just anyone. He was Emily's ex-boyfriend from college, the one she used to describe as the one who got away. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. My heart sank, and the realization hit me like a freight train. Emily was cheating on me, and the perfect life I thought we had was a lie. After seeing the texts, I felt like I was in a fog. My chest was tight, my thoughts racing. I stood there in the kitchen, holding Emily's phone, trying to make sense of what I just read. A part of me wanted to believe it was innocent, that maybe I was misunderstanding the context. But deep down, I knew better. Emily always spoke about Aaron with a wistful smile, like she was reminiscing about a movie star crush. I used to laugh it off, thinking it was harmless nostalgia. Now I wasn't so sure. I needed more proof. I scrolled up through their conversation, my stomach churning with every message. It wasn't just flirty banter, they were talking about meeting up. Aaron had mentioned a hotel, and Emily had replied with a winking emoji. Then I found the bombshell, a photo she had sent him. It wasn't explicit, but it was intimate enough to make my blood boil. She was wearing that black dress, smiling coyly into the camera, her lipstick perfectly applied. This wasn't just some harmless crush. She was all in. Emily woke up a few hours later, none the wiser about my discovery. She shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing her temples and groaning about her hangover. "Morning," she mumbled, reaching for the coffee pot. I couldn't bring myself to say anything just yet. I needed to figure out my next move. Instead, I muttered a half-hearted morning and went outside to clear my head. That afternoon, while Emily took Lily to the park, I did something I never thought I'd do. I installed a tracker app on her phone. I hated myself for stooping to that level, but I needed answers. I wasn't going to confront her without solid evidence. For the next week, I watched her like a hawk. The tracker showed me everywhere she went, her usual stops at the grocery store, the gym, and work. But then, on Friday night, she went somewhere unusual, a hotel on the other side of town. I followed her. I parked a few spaces away and watched as she walked into the lobby. She wasn't dressed up this time, just jeans and a sweater, but I recognized the way she carried herself. Confident, excited. I waited for what felt like an eternity before I saw him. Aaron. He walked in a few minutes later, and they greeted each other with a hug that lingered too long. My hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I wanted to storm in there to confront them both, to make a scene. But instead, I sat there, watching as they disappeared into the elevator. By the time I got home, my anger had turned into a smoldering rage. Emily walked through the door a few hours later, humming a tune and pretending everything was fine. "Hey, babe," she said, leaning in for a kiss. I turned away and she frowned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," I said, my voice icy. "Just tired." But I wasn't tired. I was plotting. The next day, I decided I couldn't keep it bottled up any longer. I needed to confront Emily, to force her to admit what she'd done. Lily was at my parents' house for the weekend, so it was just the two of us. Emily was in the living room, scrolling on her phone like nothing was wrong. I stood in the doorway, watching her for a moment, wondering how she could act so normal after everything. Finally, I stepped forward. "We need to talk." She glanced up, her eyebrows raised. "What about?" I sat down across from her, my heart pounding. "About Aaron." The blood drained from her face. For a split second, she looked panicked, but she quickly recovered, forcing a laugh. "What about him? Are you jealous or something?" "Cut the crap, Emily," I said, my voice low and steady. "I know about the texts, the hotel. I know everything." Her phone slipped from her hand, landing on the couch. She opened her mouth to speak but couldn't seem to find the words. "Don't bother denying it," I continued, pulling out my phone and showing her the screenshots I'd taken of their messages. Her eyes widened as she stared at the evidence, her face shifting from shock to anger. "You went through my phone?" she snapped, her voice sharp. "That's a complete invasion of privacy, Jake." I laughed bitterly. "Seriously? You're trying to turn this around on me? You're the one sneaking around with your ex, lying to my face, and risking our family. But I'm the bad guy for finding out." She crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "You don't understand. Aaron and I are just friends." "Friends," I repeated, my voice rising. "Friends don't meet at hotels or send each other pictures like this." I held up my phone again, and she flinched. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "We've just been catching up. He's going through a rough time, and I've been supporting him. That's all." "Bullshit," I spat. "Do you think I'm stupid, Emily? I saw you at the hotel. I followed you. You were all over each other in the lobby." Her face crumpled for a moment, and I thought she was about to come clean. But then she straightened, her eyes blazing with defiance. "Fine," she said. "Yes, I've been seeing Aaron. But it's not like I planned this, Jake. It just happened. You've been so distant lately, always working or distracted. I needed someone to talk to." "Talk to?" I repeated, laughing bitterly. "You expect me to believe this is about talking?" She stood up, glaring at me. "You're not exactly innocent in this, Jake. Maybe if you paid more attention to me instead of your precious job, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere." Her words hit me like a slap. My anger flared, but beneath it was a deep, gnawing hurt. "So this is my fault now?" I asked, my voice shaking. "You're the one who cheated, Emily. You betrayed me, not the other way around." She didn't answer, just stared at me with a mix of guilt and resentment. Finally, she muttered, "I'm sorry, okay? But what do you want me to say? It's done. It's over." But it wasn't over. Not even close. I walked out of the room, slamming the door behind me. I needed space, time to think about what to do next. Because one thing was clear, I wasn't just going to let this slide. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily and Aaron at that hotel, laughing, touching, acting like I didn't exist. The anger inside me was like a wildfire, and I knew I couldn't just let this go. Emily had crossed a line. She hadn't just cheated on me. She'd thrown our entire life together in my face and blamed me for her betrayal. I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. The next morning, Emily acted like nothing had happened. She hummed while making coffee, scrolled through her phone, and even asked what I wanted for dinner. Her audacity made my skin crawl, but I played along, pretending to let things cool down. While she was busy with her normal routine, I started planning. First, I needed to know more about Aaron. I didn't want to confront him directly, at least not yet, but I needed leverage. A quick search on social media gave me everything I needed. Aaron was recently divorced and living in a crappy one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. He worked at a car dealership, and judging by his posts, he thought he was some kind of hotshot. I dug deeper and found something interesting. Aaron had a habit of bragging about his exploits. His posts were full of thinly veiled references to his conquests and good times, always accompanied by vague photos of dimly lit bars or anonymous women's legs. He wasn't just a cheater, he was a creep. Then I had an idea. If Aaron was willing to cheat with my wife, chances were he wasn't exclusive to her either. I created a fake profile, complete with a stock photo of a pretty brunette, and sent him a flirty message. It didn't take long for him to bite. Within an hour, he'd replied, asking if we could meet up sometime. The conversation escalated quickly, and soon he was sending me the same kind of sleazy texts he'd been sending Emily. Bingo! I took screenshots of everything and saved them in a folder on my computer. If Emily thought Aaron was her knight in shining armor, she was about to learn otherwise. But I wasn't stopping there. While Emily was out running errands that afternoon, I went through our shared files on the computer and found a document she'd been working on. A budget spreadsheet. It included a payment for a surprise trip she had planned for next month. At first, I thought it was for us, but when I saw the destination, Miami, I knew it wasn't a family vacation. Emily hated the beach, but she'd mentioned Aaron loved it. I canceled the trip. Next, I went through her closet and pulled out a few of her favorite outfits. Ones I'd seen her wear on those nights she went out to help a friend. I stuffed them in a trash bag and took them to the Goodwill donation bin down the street. Petty? Maybe. But it felt damn good. When Emily came home that evening, she seemed cheerful, even smug. "What's for dinner?" she asked, not even noticing my cold demeanor. "Whatever you're making," I said flatly, heading upstairs before she could reply. In my room, I stared at the folder of evidence I'd compiled. Texts, photos, receipts. My plan wasn't finished yet, but I was getting close. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about making Emily face the reality of what she'd done. She wanted to live a fantasy with Aaron? Fine. I'd make sure that fantasy crashed and burned in spectacular fashion. The following week, I put my plan into motion. I knew I needed to time everything perfectly. Too soon, and Emily might spin it in her favor. Too late, and the impact wouldn't land the way I wanted. The first step was to hit her where it hurt, her image. Emily was one of those people who lived for appearances. To everyone else, she was the perfect wife, the doting mom, the successful career woman. She thrived on the admiration and envy of others. That's why I sent Aaron's sleazy texts to her best friend, Rachel. Rachel and Emily had been inseparable for years, but Rachel had always been a straight shooter. She hated cheaters. I knew that if anyone could shake Emily's carefully curated image, it was Rachel. Within an hour of sending the screenshots, my phone buzzed. It was Rachel, and she wasn't holding back. "Jake, WTF is this? Is Emily seriously cheating on you with this guy?" I played it cool, replying, "Yeah, it's true. She's been lying to me for months. I thought you should know." Rachel didn't waste any time. She confronted Emily that same afternoon, and the fallout was immediate. Emily came storming into the house, slamming the door so hard it rattled the windows. "Did you seriously tell Rachel about Aaron?" she yelled, her face red with fury. "Yep," I said calmly, not even looking up from my laptop. Her jaw dropped. "What the hell is wrong with you? That's private. You had no right." "Private?" I cut her off, finally looking at her. "You mean like how our marriage was supposed to be private? Like how you lied to me, snuck around, and cheated with your ex?" "Yeah, Emily, I'm the one who crossed a line. She sputtered, trying to come up with a response, but I didn't give her a chance. You embarrassed yourself, Emily. I just made sure someone else saw the truth. Her face twisted with anger, but before she could say anything, my phone buzzed again. It was Rachel. She admitted it. She said Erin's just a distraction. I'm so sorry, Jake. She's not the person I thought she was. The message was a dagger, but it also gave me exactly what I needed. Emily had admitted to cheating. There was no taking it back now. I turned the phone toward her. Rachel knows. How long before everyone else does? Her anger turned to panic. You wouldn't. Try me, I said coldly. Emily stormed upstairs, slamming the door to our bedroom. I let her stew for a while, knowing this was just the beginning. Later that evening, while she was sulking in bed, I made my next move. I texted Erin directly using my fake profile. Hey, I found out you've been seeing someone else. Guess it's over. Have fun explaining this to your girlfriend. The response came almost instantly. Wait, what? No, don't do anything crazy. We can work this out. I couldn't help but laugh. Erin had no idea who he was dealing with, but he'd find out soon enough. The next day, I printed out every incriminating screenshot and tucked them into an envelope. On the outside, I wrote, "For Emily's eyes only." Then I left it on her pillow. When she opened it that night, her face went pale. What is this? She whispered, flipping through the pages. It's everything you and Erin have been doing behind my back, I said, my voice cold and steady. Consider it your warning. You have 24 hours to move out, or I'll make sure everyone sees this, including Lily when she's old enough to understand. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't care. I wasn't letting her manipulate me anymore. Jake, please, she said, her voice trembling. We can fix this. I made a mistake, but I still love you. Don't do this. I shook my head, feeling nothing but emptiness. You didn't just make a mistake, Emily. You made a choice. And now you're going to live with the consequences. For the first time, she looked truly scared. But I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy. This was the bed she made, and now she had to lie in it. Emily didn't leave the house within 24 hours, as I demanded. Instead, she spent the next day alternating between pleading with me to reconsider and throwing tantrums when I wouldn't budge. She kept accusing me of being unreasonable, as if her cheating was a minor misstep I was blowing out of proportion. Jake, this isn't just about us, she said at one point, her voice dripping with faux sincerity. Think about Lily. Do you really want her to grow up in a broken home? That hit a nerve, but I didn't let it show. I'm not the one who broke this home, Emily. You did that the moment you decided Erin was worth more than your family. She stormed off, muttering under her breath, but I knew I'd struck a chord. That evening, the next domino fell. Erin showed up at our house. I was in the living room when I heard the knock. When I opened the door, there he was, looking smug as hell, like he was about to rescue Emily from her evil husband. You must be Jake, he said, giving me a condescending smile. And you must be the homewrecker, I replied, crossing my arms. What do you want? I'm here to talk to Emily, he said, glancing past me like he expected her to appear at any moment. Yeah, that's not happening, I said, stepping outside and closing the door behind me. You've done enough damage already. Erin's smile faltered. Look, man, I don't want any trouble. Emily told me things between you two were over. I didn't think. Stop, I interrupted, holding up a hand. I don't care what Emily told you. She's been lying to both of us. But if you think I'm just going to let you waltz in here and make this worse, you've got another thing coming. For a moment, he just stood there, unsure of what to say. Then his phone buzzed, and he pulled it out of his pocket. Let me guess, I said, smirking. That's one of your other conquests. Erin's face turned red. He stammered something about needing to go, then hurried back to his car. I watched as he drove off, feeling a small sense of satisfaction. One down, one to go. When I walked back inside, Emily was waiting in the hallway, her arms crossed. What did you say to him? She demanded. Nothing he didn't deserve, I replied, brushing past her. You're unbelievable, she snapped, following me into the kitchen. Aaron was just trying to help. Help with what? I interrupted, spinning around to face her. Destroying our family? Because that's all he's done. And you let him. She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. I'm done, Emily, I said, my voice cold. I've already contacted a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce. You can stay here for another week while you figure out where to go. But after that, I want you gone. Her face crumpled, and for a moment I thought she might actually apologize. But instead, she turned on her heel and walked away, slamming the bedroom door behind her. I leaned against the counter, taking a deep breath. The worst part of me wanted to feel triumphant, but all I felt was exhaustion. That night, I started drafting my divorce petition. It was the first step toward taking my life back, and even though it hurt, I knew it was the right thing to do. But Emily wasn't going to make it easy. Not by a long shot. The days that followed were a mixture of tense silence and outright hostility. Emily barely spoke to me, except when she was snapping at me over something trivial or trying to guilt me into changing my mind. You're being ridiculous, she hissed one morning as I was making Lily's breakfast. Do you really think you're going to come out of this looking like the good guy? Everyone's going to see you for the controlling jerk you are. I didn't even look at her. Everyone already knows the truth, Emily. You're the one who has to live with the fallout. That shut her up, but not for long. The next blow came when I got a call from my lawyer. Jake, we've received a counterclaim from Emily's lawyer, she said, her tone measured but serious. She's demanding joint custody of Lily, along with a share of the house and spousal support. I nearly dropped the phone. Spousal support? Are you kidding me? She's the one who cheated. I know, my lawyer said calmly, and we'll fight it. But you should prepare yourself. This is going to get messy. Messy didn't even begin to cover it. That evening, Emily ambushed me as I was cleaning up after dinner. So I talked to my lawyer today, she said, her voice smug. She thinks I have a strong case for custody. After all, I've been the one spending the most time with Lily. Courts tend to side with mothers, you know? I turned to face her, my hands gripping the edge of the counter. Do you even hear yourself, Emily? You're the one who blew up this family, and now you're trying to take Lily away from me? How low can you go? Her smirk faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. I'm just fighting for what's best for her. And let's face it, Jake. You've been so focused on work, you barely even know what she likes to eat for breakfast. That was it. I'd had enough. You want to fight dirty? Fine, I said, my voice calm but ice cold. But don't forget, Emily, I have everything. The texts, the photos, the receipts. Do you really want the court to see all that? Her face paled, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. You wouldn't, she whispered. Try me, I said, turning away from her. Over the next few days, I doubled down. I gathered every piece of evidence I had and gave it to my lawyer, including a statement from Rachel confirming that Emily had admitted to the affair. I also filed a motion for full custody, citing Emily's infidelity and unstable behavior as proof that she wasn't fit to be the primary parent. Emily didn't take it well. One night, she burst into the living room where I was watching TV and threw a stack of papers at me. This is insane, she yelled. You're trying to make me look like a monster. You know I love Lily more than anything. Then start acting like it. I shot back. Because so far, all you've done is prove that you care more about yourself than anyone else. Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I thought she might actually break down. But instead, she stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. I sat there, staring at the papers she'd thrown at me. They were her counterclaims, filled with half-truths and outright lies. It was infuriating, but it only strengthened my resolve. I wasn't going to let Emily bully me into backing down. For Lily's sake, I was going to see this through to the end, no matter what it took. The day of our first court hearing was a stormy one, both literally and figuratively. Rain poured down as I walked into the courthouse, clutching a folder full of evidence. My lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Karen, met me at the door with a reassuring nod. Emily arrived shortly after, flanked by her lawyer, a man who looked like he belonged in a soap opera with his slicked-back hair and expensive suit. She was dressed to impress, all smiles and charm, as if she thought she could sway the judge by pretending to be the perfect wife and mother. But I had come prepared. The hearing started with both sides presenting their cases. Emily's lawyer painted her as a devoted mother who had made a mistake, but was committed to putting Lily's needs first. He emphasized my long work hours and suggested that Emily was the more present parent. I wanted to laugh out loud. Sure, Emily had been present at hotels with Aaron while I was the one making sure Lily was fed, bathed, and tucked into bed. When it was my turn, Karen didn't hold back. She presented the evidence in a calm, methodical manner, starting with the texts between Emily and Aaron. The judge's expression shifted as she read through the messages, her neutral demeanor giving way to a subtle frown. Next came the receipts, hotel bookings, canceled flights, and even the surprise Miami trip Emily had planned for herself and Aaron. Karen also submitted Rachel's statement, which confirmed that Emily had admitted to the affair. By the time Karen finished, Emily's confident facade was cracking. She squirmed in her seat, her face pale and her hands clenched in her lap. Then the judge asked Emily to speak. "Your Honor," she began, her voice trembling, "I made a mistake. I won't deny that. But Jake hasn't been perfect either. He works long hours and is always distracted. I was lonely, and I sought comfort in the wrong place. But that doesn't mean I'm not a good mother." Her lawyer jumped in to emphasize that Emily's actions, while regrettable, didn't negate her ability to care for Lily. He argued that the affair was a personal matter and shouldn't impact custody. But Karen wasn't done yet. "Your Honor," she said, her voice firm, "this is not just about infidelity. It's about trust, stability, and the well-being of a child. Emily's actions demonstrate a pattern of deception and poor judgment. Jake has shown himself to be the more reliable parent, and we believe full custody is in Lily's best interest." The judge took everything in and called for a recess to review the evidence. As we waited in the hallway, Emily glared at me from across the room. "You're ruining my life," she hissed when she walked past me. "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." When the judge returned, her decision wasn't final. This was only a preliminary hearing, but it was clear the tide was turning in my favor. She granted me temporary primary custody and ordered that Emily's visitation be supervised until the custody evaluation was complete. Emily looked like she'd been slapped. She started to argue, but her lawyer quickly pulled her aside, whispering something in her ear. She shot me one last venomous glare before storming out of the courtroom. As I left the courthouse, the rain had stopped, and the clouds were beginning to break. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. The fight wasn't over, but I was finally gaining ground. Lily deserved a stable, loving environment, and I was going to make sure she got it, no matter what Emily tried next. After the court hearing, Emily's behavior took a turn for the worse. She was no longer trying to charm her way back into my good graces or play the role of the victim. Instead, she became combative, erratic, and even more manipulative. Her supervised visits with Lily were awkward, to say the least. She spent most of the time sulking or making passive-aggressive comments about me to the social worker overseeing the visits. Once, she even tried to whisper to Lily, "Daddy doesn't want Mommy to live with you anymore." But the social worker shut that down immediately. Meanwhile, Emily's lawyer sent a barrage of emails to mine, demanding that the court reconsider its temporary ruling. They accused me of turning Lily against Emily and claimed that I was trying to alienate her. It was laughable. Emily was doing a fine job of alienating herself without any help from me. But the most shocking move came one Friday evening. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when my phone buzzed with a notification from my home security app. It was Emily. She was outside, pounding on the front door, yelling loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Jake, let me in. We need to talk." I opened the app and spoke through the camera. "Emily, go home. This isn't your house anymore." "I have a right to be here," she shouted, her face flushed with anger. "I want to see Lily." "She's not here," I lied, hoping it would make her leave. Go through the proper channels if you want to see her. You're a coward, Jake, she screamed, kicking the door. You're trying to take everything from me, but I won't let you win. At that point, I called the police. By the time they arrived, Emily had retreated to her car, but she was still yelling and banging on the steering wheel. The officers calmed her down and escorted her off the property, warning her not to return without prior arrangement. That incident was the final nail in her coffin. I immediately reported it to the court, along with the security footage and a statement from my neighbors who had witnessed the scene. My lawyer added it to our growing pile of evidence that Emily's behavior was erratic and potentially harmful to Lily. But Emily wasn't done. The next week, she tried to drag Aaron into the custody battle, claiming he could vouch for her character. Couldn't believe it. The same guy she cheated with was now supposed to help her win custody? Aaron, however, wanted no part of it. He was already backtracking, probably regretting the entire affair now that it was blowing up in his face. From what I heard through Rachel, he had ghosted Emily completely after the court hearing. When Emily realized she was losing ground, she started texting me constantly, alternating between threats and pleas for forgiveness. Jake, please let's work this out. For Lily's sake. You're ruining my life. You'll regret this. We're still married. You can't just erase me. I ignored most of her messages, only responding when it was absolutely necessary to coordinate her visits with Lily. I could see her spiraling, and while a small part of me felt pity, the rest of me knew I had to stay strong. The final blow came when the court-appointed custody evaluator completed her report. It detailed Emily's unstable behavior, the affair, and her inability to provide a consistent and safe environment for Lily. The recommendation was clear. I should retain primary custody. When the report was presented in court, Emily broke down in tears. Her lawyer tried to salvage what was left of her case, but it was obvious they were grasping at straws. As I walked out of the courtroom that day, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The fight wasn't officially over yet, but for the first time, I felt like I had truly won. Emily's desperation had backfired, and the life she had tried to destroy was finally starting to rebuild itself. The final court hearing came a month later. By that point, Emily's lawyer had stopped pushing for primary custody, focusing instead on negotiating a reasonable visitation schedule. It was clear that Emily's erratic behavior, coupled with the damning evidence I'd presented, had left her with little room to argue. The judge's ruling was straightforward. I was awarded full custody of Lily, with Emily granted supervised visits twice a month. She was also ordered to attend therapy and parenting classes if she wanted to petition for more access in the future. As the judge read the decision, I glanced at Emily. She looked defeated, her shoulders slumped, her eyes hollow. For the first time, I saw her not as my wife or the woman who betrayed me, but as someone who had lost control of her own life. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt nothing. The days that followed were a blur of adjustments and quiet relief. I focused all my energy on Lily, making sure she felt safe and loved despite the upheaval in our lives. She seemed to adapt quickly, her resilience reminding me why I had fought so hard in the first place. Emily, on the other hand, kept her distance. She complied with the court's orders, attending her supervised visits without incident, but the spark she once had was gone. Rachel told me she was barely speaking to anyone, and Aaron had completely cut ties with her. One evening, after Lily had gone to bed, I sat on the porch with a beer, reflecting on everything that had happened. The betrayal, the anger, the court battles. It all felt like a bad dream I was finally waking up from. I wasn't the same person I'd been when this all started. I'd learned how to stand up for myself, to set boundaries, and to prioritize what truly mattered. To anyone reading this who's been through something similar, you can survive this. It's messy, it's painful, but it doesn't define you. You're more than the betrayal, more than the lies. Emily and I don't talk much now, beyond the necessary logistics of her visits with Lily. I don't hate her anymore, but I also don't feel sorry for her. She made her choices and I made mine. Lily is my focus now, my priority, my joy, my reason to keep moving forward. And as I watch her grow, I know I'm doing the right thing. Life isn't perfect, but it's mine again. and that's a pretty good start. Thank you for staying with me. This crazy journey is finally over and I'm ready for what's next. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more interesting stories. And leave a comment with what you would do in this situation. See you in the next videos.